So this video, we're going to be talking about lesson 5.5, representing decimals with a model. So in this problem, I have 1.2 or 1 and 2 tenths plus 0.7 or 0 and 7 tenths. And I'm going to use a model to find the sum or the answer to an addition problem. So I have my 10 by 10 grid. Now I'm going to first show what 1.2 or 1 and 2 tenths looks like. So I'm going to shade one whole 10 by 10 grid. And so there are 10 rows, 10 columns, so 10 by 10. So this is a whole. Might not hit every last bit of it, but you get the idea. And then I'm going to shade in 2 tenths. Well, 2 tenths is equal to 20 small squares. So I need to shade in 2 tenths on the next one. There we go. 2 tenths on the next one. Because 2 tenths, is 20 out of 100. And if I were to cancel out those last two zeros, right, powers of 10, I can cancel them out. I'm left with 2 tenths, 2 over 10. Well, now I need to model 0.7 or 0 and 7 tenths. Well, so that is 7 columns. So I have 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, 5 tenths, 6 tenths, and now 7. So I have 7 tenths all together. And I'm looking at this as if I didn't have the decimal points on this, I have 2 plus 7. And if I added those together, I'd end up with 9. Well, the same concept applies where if I were to have decimal points, I just keep them aligned. 2 and 7 is still 9. I add my decimal point, and I end up with 9 tenths. Well, so am I going back to the original problem? How many whole ones are there? How many ones are there? Well, I have 1. And then how many tenths are there? Well, I have 9 tenths, 9 columns of 10. So 1.2 plus 0.7 would be 1.9. Because 1 plus 0.9 would be 1 and 9 tenths. Now I could better off write this as 1.0 plus 0.9, lining up my decimal points. 0 and 9 is 9, 1 and 0 is 1, and so 1.9. If I were to estimate this, well, 1 is obviously a whole, and our 0.7, well, that's close to a whole as well. So 1 and 1 is 2, which 1.9 is about 2 as well. So our answer is reasonable. All right, let's do our next one. 1.8 plus 0.45, or 1 and 8 hundredths, plus 0 and 45 hundredths. So again, I'm going to model and show 1 and 8 hundredths. So we have a whole. I'm going to shade in a whole one. But now 8 hundredths is only 8 out of the 100 here. So I'm just going to shade in. So there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So that is my 1 and 8 hundredths. So 8 hundredths is equal to 8 small squares. Now I need to model and show what 45 hundredths looks like, and that's going to be 45 individual squares. Well, I'm going to first start off by shading in 10, and then 20, 30, 40. So that's 40 right now. So that's my 4 tenths. But now I need 5 hundredths. So I'm going to go back and fill in these last two. So that's 42. And I'm going to go for 3 more. So now I have 45 hundredths altogether. So if I go back to my problem now, I'm going to add how many ones are there? Well, I have 1 whole. This is the whole one. But then how many tenths are there? Well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 whole tenths. And then I have how many hundredths? Well, there are 1, 2, and 3 hundredths altogether. So if I were to show what this looks like, this would be like saying I have 1 plus I have 5 tenths. Remember, 5 tenths is 0.5. and then I have 300ths. So 0.300, so 3 needs to be in the hundredths place. This is now where what I call annexing a 0. So I need to make sure I have zeros in all of the other blank spots so I can easily add vertically here. So 0, 0, and 3 is 3. 0, 5, and 0 is 5. Keep my decimal points lined up, and then 1, 0, and 0 is 1. So 1.08 plus 0.45, or 1 and 800ths plus 45 hundredths, would be 1 and 53 hundredths. Now, if I were to have estimated this, well, 1 is close to 1, right? That makes sense. And 45 hundredths is close to half, right? So 1 and a half is close to our 1.53, or 1 and 53 hundredths. So that makes our answer reasonable. Good. So let's think about this. Explain how we would use a grid paper, or a 10 by 10 grid, to model 2/10ths and 2/100ths. So this is 2/10ths, and this one is 2/100ths. So how would they compare? Well, as I compare decimals, I need to line them up. So 0.2 and 0.02. Again, I can append that 0, and I'm going to work my way across looking at place values from left to right. Well, the zeros are the same, so I can't tell which one's greater. Now I look at the tenths. 2 is greater than 0, so this whole number, 0.2, is greater than 0.02. How would they be different if I shaded them in? Well, my 0 and 2/10ths, there would be 18 more small squares shaded. All right, now this next one. What decimal is modeled by a 10 by 10 grid with 82 small squares shaded? Well, if I had 82 out of a 10 by 10, 82 out of 100, well, I say this as 82 hundredths. When I have a fraction here, this is my THS word, 82 hundredths. So 82 hundredths would be 82 with the 2 in the hundredths place. And that's it. So let's model a few more, and then you can get to your practice. So again, 2.46, or 2 and 46 hundredths. I would shade 2 whole 10 by 10 grids, because this is a whole. So that's 2 of them. Fill in. And then, so that's my 2. And now I need 46 hundredths. So again, I'm going to count by my columns of 10. So that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, and 4. So now I have my 40, or my 4/10ths, and I now need 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Boom. That's my 2 and 46 hundredths. Next one is going to be shaded in our 1 and 13 hundredths. Well, I'm going to use the full grid over here to shade the 1 part of this. So now I have the 1. I'm going to shade in 1/10, so I have 1/10 here. And then I can shade in 3 hundredths. So I have 1, 2, and 3. Now, understand I left this one empty. So this is not complete, this column of 10. So there are only 9 filled in here. Just keep that in mind. So when I go to add these, looking at it, I have 1 whole, 2 whole, 3 whole. So I have 3 whole, and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns of 10 filled in. So that's my tenths. And now I remember I only had 9 of them here, so that's 9 hundredths filled in. So 3 and 59 hundredths. If I were to actually just write this out without modeling, because modeling is not going to be the most efficient way, but it helps us understand what we're actually doing. 2.46 plus 1.13, 2 and 4600ths plus 1 and 1300ths. Again, I line up based on my decimal point. And I simply add. 6 plus 3 is 9. 4 plus 1 is 5. Keep my decimal points lined up. 2 and 1 is 3. And fantastic. I ended up with what I should have. And let's look at just one more here. This one is a little bit bigger, but that's what we're after, is to make our practice a little bit more challenging than the actual work. So 2.91 means I'm going to shade in 2 whole ones here. So I have 2 whole ones. And let's clean up this so it doesn't get confusing over on the other one. And I'm going to shade in, so that's my 2. And now I'm going to shade in my 9/10. So again, I'm going to shade in, here's 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And now I have 1/100th. So that's simply this one here. So 2 and 91/100ths is filled in. I'm going to shade in now 1 and 8/10. Well, I'm going to shade in a whole. So that's my 1. And now I'm going to shade in my 8/10. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So 1 and 8/10. So now when I go to add, don't forget that you had a single 1 over here that is shaded, but the rest of that column is not. So if I were to add all these together, this is a whole, here's another one, so that's 2, 3. Now I need to put these 2 together, right? I can look at it and say, well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Sorry, I lost my count. 5, 6, 7, and 8. 9, and now this is 10 whole, right? So that's 10/10. So this is now equal to another whole. Now I can add in my next columns, and so I'm going to start over on my counts and say, well, this is, let's use another color just to help separate our counting, and say that something that stands out just a little bit different than the others. And what stands out? Purple stands out. So